everyone, it's me, me at the Art Truth. Sorry for the long wait. I've been celebrating my birthday and been a little bit busy for the last 2 to 3 weeks. And it's kind of nice right now, even though that 2021 has been an especially crappy year, like in 2020, that there's some good things to see about this. Again, my birthday, I am now officially 25 years old as of September 25th. So yeah, there's something to celebrate for that. But in this video, I do want to address a few things specifically with the Biden regime and indirectly several Democrats as well, like with governors or even representatives that arguably have violated many of our rights. And you can there may be some debate over this, but I definitely have an issue with how Biden and the Democrats are basically, in my view, at the very least, and I'm pretty sure in a lot of other people's view, whether on the right or left, are basically going around the Constitution to do their own thing, despite how much it violates our rights as Americans. So I've actually put in a list of violations or potential violations of mainly Biden and a few of the Democrats on here that I think are legitimate, and just to be sure to show why I think that those violations are legitimate, I even have my pocketbook to the United States Constitution over the Bill of Rights. Not the lights. I'm sounding like Joe Biden now. Oh my God, I'm turning into a potato. Oh no. But anyway, here's specifically what I'm going to be focusing on. I'm only focusing on the 10 amendments because those tend to be the most concerning when it comes to the individual U.S. citizen. A lot of the other amendments do not necessarily, arguably have a are the most important. But take it back. They are definitely important, but I'd say that the first 10 definitely fall within more with the individual. When it comes to our rights. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The First Amendment. So, here's what the First Amendment says. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people to peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So this one is definitely big, especially right now with the COVID pandemic that's going on, and with the lockdowns and that sort of thing. The lockdowns, of course, are definitely a big issue, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people remember back in places such as, say, not just here in Washington, but even in California or even Michigan with Gretchen Whitmer, people have actually been arrested as a result for protesting against these lockdowns, which are definitely been a legitimate concern over the economy of these respective states, and now are actively in violation of the Constitution, where the states are violating the First Amendment. Now, this is not the only issue that I have, especially since these violations, a lot of these violations involve the Biden regime. But the lockdowns are definitely one good example. In terms of the Biden regime and now it has violated the First Amendment, I would say the collusion of big tech over fight what they consider as vaccine misinformation. I bet everyone remembers when Jen Psaki, the press secretary of Joe Biden, said that they were colluding with big tech companies such as Facebook and Twitter, and that's just to name a few, over trying to deal with vaccine misinformation. She even went so far as to say that we're trying to get Facebook to look over problematic posts, that sort of thing, in order to supposedly, again, combat misinformation. And this should be concerning for a lot of people, both on the right and on the left, because the government can easily say that this is misinformation, this is not true, and then actively go ahead and try to silence you. Plus, it doesn't help with big tech companies when they are supposedly platforms where you can speak out your mind, and yet they're doing the exact opposite, silencing you, kind of like and say their own opinions, kind of like a publisher. This is one of the problems that I have with big tech. They definitely need to be reined in, and their own, I would argue, say monopolies be broken up. But the fact that the federal government under Joe Biden is actively colluding with these big tech companies suggests that this is one of the ways that Biden is definitely violating the First Amendment. And I argue this as this being a civil conspiracy. Now on my phone it specifically says over the definition of a civil conspiracy. A civil conspiracy or collusion is an agreement between two or more parties to deprive a third party of legal rights or deceive a third party to obtain an illegal objective. And I would say that considering, again, Facebook and Twitter are supposedly platforms, and the federal government and these companies are working together to silence people what they consider misinformation, is a legitimate violation of the First Amendment. And definitely and gives me a major beef with Biden when he actively goes on to support this. Another issue that I have with his violations of the First Amendment actually revolves around his own federal employees, where he mandated that all federal employees should get the vaccine. And then it went so far as to include even the Department of Defense, where Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, God, I hate that guy, basically told all active duty service members to get the Pfizer shot before a certain deadline, depending on the armed force that you serve in. And a lot of people who have been trying to make some certain exemptions of this, whether medical or maybe even religious, have said that they cannot be able to put in the paperwork on time due to the fact that these deadlines are quickly approaching. I wouldn't be surprised if a few of these deadlines have already been met, and a lot of people who are trying to get exemptions are now forced to take the shot, or else they be court-martialed or something similar. Hell, there's a good example of this where 625 Navy SEALs, according to the Epic Times, have actually gone out and said that they're not going to get the vaccine as a result. And 625 Navy SEALs maybe sound like a small number when it comes to a lot of the military, but keep in mind this is the Navy SEALs, a special forces group, and that counts as a good portion because there aren't that many Navy SEALs. Again, special forces, small number, I'd say maybe, just a conservative guess, 3,000 active duty members. Again, just a guess, I do not know the exact number, and I doubt I will ever know. But it's definitely going to be a major headache because the United States military has actively threatened that these guys will not be deployed, which honestly, it's pretty stupid when they consider that this is a large portion of their special forces, and they're going to be hampered as a result. So again, this doesn't give people time over medical exemptions or religious exemptions to say I cannot or will not take this shot because reasons. And I think that, and honestly, yeah, this is something I don't like, especially whether or not you like the federal government or not. The employees within the federal government definitely have rights as well within the United States Constitution as U.S. citizens, even in the United States military. Now, I know that there are situations that the military is very authoritative, and I definitely understand that. But as U.S. citizens, they still have certain rights. Now, continuing on with potential violations of the Second Amendment. Now, here's the Second Amendment, and this is definitely the most popular. A regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So, mainly, not much has been done because by the Biden regime, although he has proposed a lot of measures in order to supposedly combat gun violence. This is mainly in the States, but there's definitely a link in one place where I also consider to be civil conspiracy. Now, just to let you know, I'm not a lawyer. I only have a bachelor's degree in political science, so do not consider me to be the best when it comes to the law in any way. You have to actually get a real lawyer for this. But here's again my opinions on the Second Amendment with Biden actively proposing a ban on assault weapons, kind of like how the Clinton administration actively did that back in the 90s. Although, if my history is correct, that ban eventually ran out. Now, there was also the call by Biden to support universal background checks, but because of the current deadlock within the House of Representatives, as well as the Senate, with people like Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema being from Republican states despite being Democrats, there was no way for this to get passed. But I will say that there has been. I'm definitely concerned over how Joe Biden is trying to disregard the Second Amendment, like when the Department of Justice trying to write templates for states to pass red flag laws, which you can argue it would definitely violate the person's right to bear arms, despite the fact that they have not yet committed a crime. Now there are of course certain rules, like say the mentally ill who are a danger to themselves as well as others cannot own a firearm, or even those who with a criminal history cannot own a firearm. But the red flag laws can easily punish those who haven't had those problems in the past, and that is definitely a problem. I would also argue that this also falls within civil conspiracy. See, since it's the Department of Justice working with these states, and I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Biden actually had some say over this. But then again, I could be wrong. But it doesn't help me when Joe Biden says no amendment is absolute. Yeah, Joe Biden, the amendments are absolute. If that's the case, you would still be having slaves, despite the 13th Amendment being in play. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a regular YouTuber. The Third Amendment. This also involves COVID. The Third Amendment says, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in the manner to be prescribed by law. Now, there are two specific phrases in here which involve this violation by the Biden regime. Specifically, consent of the owner. A lot of owners have been wanting to get rid of certain tenants because they haven't been paying bills or whatnot, and they haven't respected the property, which is the owner's property, despite the fact of the eviction moratorium saying that they cannot send people out despite the fact of their grievances. And yes, the eviction moratorium which the CDC issued is one of these violations. And the second part, which is supported by the Supreme Court, would be, but in the manner to be prescribed by law. Last time I checked, laws are passed by the Congress and are enforced by the executive. The executive cannot pass laws on its own accord. And yet Joe Biden basically encouraged the CDC to do just that, to support the eviction moratorium, despite the fact that the Supreme Court said while they will allow the eviction moratorium to continue as it is, it will not go further than past its expiration date unless the Congress passes laws to extend it. And last time I checked, the Congress did not pass any laws. And again, this was under Brett Kavanaugh's decision. He was the ruling decision. And this opinion basically allowed him to side with the liberals. But in the case where the eviction moratorium comes back, which it did, he was going to vote with the opposition, with the conservatives on this one, because again, it was going to lead. There was going to be uh, an expiration sooner or later, so why not just run out the clock and let Congress deal with this? And already there's a lawsuit being filed by homeowners in, I think it's in the state of Alabama, over the eviction moratorium, that saying that they were being violated by the federal government. And I'm pretty sure this is not the only time with the eviction moratorium. I'm pretty sure there are a few other instances, especially in terms of this COVID pandemic that we're dealing with, that the federal government has violated these people's rights. And so they've actually filed a lawsuit against the federal government. I'm not sure if the Supreme Court actually took it up or not, and they are saying that the federal government is a violation of the Third Amendment. So I'm definitely putting it on the Third Amendment for this one. The Fourth Amendment. Give me a breather. Okay, here's the Fourth Amendment. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Now, this actually comes in. This specific violation comes in pretty recently from an accidental leak within the FBI, where apparently new documents are showing that FBI having blacklists and searching people over Google searches, over specific names, addresses, phone numbers. Not specific crimes that they may have committed, not anything of that sort where they are charged, or they may have be part of an investigation of some sort. No, just looking up certain rules, certain words on Google, and apparently you're on a blacklist for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is why I have a problem with the FBI. They're becoming more like a secret police than anything. And I used to respect the FBI, and in some way I still do, but not in the way that it's being politicized. In fact, Dr. Steve Turley actually had the term for this because, he used a term that already exists, called politicized legalism, where basically the government, or at least anyone who's in charge of the government, uses the law to persecute their political opponents. Here, an example would be the federal government will not like the idea of the federal government is not enforcing the border, but they are definitely going after people who are opposing CRT in schools or something of that nature. If you guys want, I'll be able to put in Dr. Steve Turley's video in order to for him to better explain it. But that's actually another violation within the Fourth Amendment as that within my own list, actually, where the DOJ is actively using the FBI to monitor parents opposing CRT, mask mandates, etc. In fact, I'm going to be making another video about this because this is a major problem, because not only does this also arguably involves the 10th Amendment, although I have other issues in regards to the violations of the 10th Amendment, but I'm specifically looking into the 4th Amendment, putting the 4th Amendment on this one, where the FBI is just going to get involved in local matters or state matters as a result. It's really funny, saddening how the FBI is basically training concerned parents who are opposing CRT, mask mandates, etc., as domestic terrorists, instead of people like, say, Antifa. But hey, who am I to question the FBI over who they consider terrorism or not? Again, this alone needs a video on its own, and I will definitely give it to you guys. But that's another issue that I have with that, because they haven't been charged yet. The only issues in that The only issue is that the DOJ are the reason why the DOJ is actively using the FBI to investigate these parents is because of concerned threats. Despite the fact that, again, a lot of these parents are trying to come in demanding that these school boards are to stop with this bullshit, and they honestly, a lot of them want to do it peacefully, just coming in there, as concerned parents, addressing their grievances, and just get the school board to remove this curriculum. But it's just really aggravating. Now, I'm not going to say there wasn't a few problems with how parents are actually, a few of them actually got into fist fights and yelling and stuff. But again, these are local matters, and at most you could say that you could charge them with assault. But they are legitimately angry, and I would say that this definitely falls within the Fourth Amendment. Since now the FBI is going to be monitoring parents over threats, supposedly. And this is basically at the request of the National School Board. But that's now the Fourth Amendment. Now the Fifth Amendment, and this is where I'm going to get into January 6th and the Derek Chauvin trial. I originally was going to put January 6th as the First Amendment, but I didn't think that would apply as well as with the Fifth Amendment. In fact, I'm going to be saying the Fifth, Sixth, and Eighth Amendment also apply. But I'm going to be doing them individually. So, here's the Fifth Amendment. Here we go. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless... Sorry about that, guys. I actually had an issue with my computer. It was running low on battery, so I had to cut a part of the video short. Don't worry. I'm pretty sure I'm going to splice these two videos together before I come out with a finished product. So let's go back to what I was originally about to say. The Fifth Amendment. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on the presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land and naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any case to be witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now here's the issue in regards to how the Fifth Amendment was violated in the case of the Derek Chauvin trial. Basically over politicization. Yes, Joe Biden definitely had a hand in this, where he basically said to the press that he hoped that the jury would make the right decision, and this is according to CNBC, which I will be putting down in the description down below if you guys would like to check that out. And this is even after Maxine Waters making these statements about people being more confrontational. This in turn would cause honestly the entire jury to be rigged from the start because of the whole politicization issue in regards to the benefit of an impartial jury. Because again, as to state within the Fifth Amendment, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless in the presentment or indictment of a grand jury, nor shall blah 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 da, 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 da. And of course, it says here right here, without due process of law. That's just to add a specific part of it. I know I skipped over a portion of that. Again, although I did say earlier in this video the entire Fifth Amendment. I will be linking the Bill of Rights down below if you guys want to check it out for yourselves. But continuing on, the politicization would definitely have an issue in regards to the whole entire due process of law because, again, Maxine Waters and Joe Biden have actively stated that they want the jury to come out with the right or correct decision in their own judgment, in their own personal view, and that alone should be the result of definitely a mistrial. In fact, there should have been a mistrial by that judge before he carried out the sentence. But then again, he decided he was going to go through with it, which is definitely BS. Especially since the charges laid against him, in which Derek Chauvin was found guilty of, make no sense, such as manslaughter, being associated with first and second degree murder, I believe. Definitely at the very minimum, second degree murder, which requires intent, even though manslaughter, which is third degree murder, requires the act to kill, but no intention whatsoever. Kind of a huge problem, and it doesn't help with the fact that apparently a BLM activist was a part of the jury, further tainting it. Again, it was completely politicized. Joe Biden, Maxine Waters, and a few other Democrats should not have gotten involved. And that's just the Fifth Amendment, and specifically with Derek Chauvin. In the case of January 6th, some of them have not even gone to trial yet. Some of them have been held in solitary confinement and have not been charged in any way. This is in violation of due process, and again, it's being held to answer for a capital or infamous crime unless the presentment or indictment of a grand jury. They have some of these people have not even seen an actual jury for a while. Haven't even been part of a judge, or again tried. Which I say again, this is in violation of their Fifth Amendment rights, as well as Derek Chauvin. God damn this bug. So finally to continue on, the Sixth Amendment. All criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed. The district shall have been previously attained by a law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witness against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Again, basically the same violations apply with Derek Chauvin and the January 6 defendants, where again a few of the January 6 defendants are still being held and have not been able to get a trial. And a few haven't been charged, and this has been a constant issue that a lot of people, mainly Republicans, have been criticizing Biden on, for basically allowing these people to suffer in their cells without having to go through a jury or even be allowed access on bail. And of course, again, with Derek Chauvin, as I said before, with the politicization, and again, BLM activists further tainting the jury's decision. Again, this is supposed to be not only a speedy public trial, which admittedly it was, but it was supposed to have an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been previously ascertained by law. An impartial jury, yet that apparently was thrown out the window. I really hope that Derek Chauvin finds a way to get an appeal for mistrial, because what he's going through is complete BS. Same with these January 6 defendants. They definitely deserve some kind of compensation from the federal government over them being held. Now, Amendment 7, I couldn't see any major violations of that. That's mainly over the issue of bail, but I could be wrong. Now, here is Amendment 8. Oh, wait, take that back. It's over, like, a civil... Amendment 7 is over mainly financial disputes. I apologize. Amendment 8 is about bail. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. I would say that unusual punishment is uh, definitely applicable to January 6th, and even with the sentencing of Derek Chauvin with 22 and a half years. If he manages to get an appeal for a mistrial, he definitely deserves some kind of compensation from either the state or the federal government. I think it would be more applicable with the state, to get some kind of compensation as a result of him being in jail for that sentencing. But yeah, again, this just incredibly pisses me off. The Ninth Amendment, I couldn't really see violations, although I could be wrong in both the case of the Seventh and Ninth Amendments. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. And although I will say with this as just my personal perspective with the Ninth Amendment, I interpreted the Ninth Amendment as basically saying that no person can use their rights to violate another person's own rights. But hey, that's just me. The 10th Amendment. I would say this is definitely one of the most damning because Biden has been actively going to war against many states, specifically in the cases, say, Texas or Florida. And I know that there are a lot of other states, other governors, other lawmakers who are actively confronting the federal government over vaccine mandates. Recently, back in early September, and this was after the botched Afghanistan withdrawal that was under Joe Biden's own authority, or well, his own responsibility. Joe Biden announced that he was trying to get the Department of Labor to coerce companies to get their employees to have the vaccine, or to potentially get them fired, or if they don't want either of those situations, to have weekly tests of COVID-19. And a lot of governors say this is in violation of the 10th Amendment, as well as a lot of the individual rights involved, that a lot of people are definitely very concerned over, with the federal government just taking matters in its own hands, especially when one of the Supreme Court cases back in 1910 over I think it was smallpox. I actually mentioned this in one of my previous videos, and it was about this involved the state of Massachusetts, where the Supreme Court said under the 10th Amendment that states could require vaccine mandates to its populace. I don't entirely agree with that, but that is definitely a power reserved to them under the 10th Amendment. Okay, need to reiterate. I do see some benefits over trying to get states to push for vaccination, but I don't think mandates are the best way in order to do that, especially with right now how it's being politicized. And it could it could be argued that this may be a push for more authority, more power by the state or federal government. Of course, this definitely, in a case where it's ruled under the 10th Amendment, more specifically towards the states. But because of this case, it did leave out the federal government. And I would say that the states themselves who are challenging this authority would definitely use this case to say no to vaccine mandates, or at least federally. And this is not the only issue that Biden has been actively going after states and potentially violating the 10th Amendment. He's actively called on his DOJ to investigate the Texas abortion law, despite the fact that it hasn't actually illegalized abortion. It has definitely limited to, I think it was about 6 weeks when the heart of the fetus is developed. At least that's from what I've heard. and from what I remember from reading a few articles. But and that again, this is just vaccines and abortion I'm specifically talking about. He's also even got after with the election law, where the DOJ has actually sued one of the laws passed by the state of Georgia over integrity as a response to the 2020 election, basically claiming that the law discriminates people based upon their own race. In fact, here we go with one of the articles, and this is from the justice.gov site, and I would be putting this down in the description down below if you guys are interested in looking at this. The U.S. complaint challenges several provisions of Senate Bill 202, including a provision banning government entities from distributing unsolicited absentee ballot applications, the imposition of costly and onerous fines on civic organizations, churches, and advocacy groups that distribute and follow up absentee ballot applications, and a few other issues, such as voting ID, that again, the Department of Justice is alleging that it has a discriminant and cumulative effect, particularly against black voters. Despite the fact that that of course is actively ridiculous, especially since a lot of people in the black community actually support said voter ID laws. About 65%, if I recall correctly, actively support voter ID laws. And yet somehow there's the DOJ is actively saying that somehow that this is racism. It's BS. Also, another good, at least attempted violation, and I would say this was also falls under Congress, but Joe Biden was actively pushing it, would be House Bill number 1, that was thankfully crushed by people like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. I can't believe I actually praised a few Democrats as a result of this. But hey, when they do something right, they do something right. Within the bill, it basically federalizes all elections, despite the fact that this totally violates the Constitution. I'm not just talking about the 10th Amendment, but within the Constitution, it says that that election laws are left specifically to the states, not to the federal government, the states. And the fact that the Congress, or specifically congressional Democrats and the Biden regime actively supported that is all you need to tell with Biden and his cronies. They're actively through these violations that I have stated within this video are just too many to amount. I would argue that this makes Joe Biden look more like a dictator than Trump ever was. The left love to use the term that Trump was somehow Adolf Hitler, how he was a Nazi, and how he wanted to violate the Constitution. But I want to ask these leftists, explain these violations. Should you not be concerned that Joe Biden is making all these? The Democrats are making all these. Honestly, as American citizens, it doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum you're on. If the federal government or the state government, whether Democrat or Republican, is violating your rights, and it's clear as day, then you need to stand up and fight against this. Call them out against this and resist through court action, through protesting, anything that you can. You should definitely, as American citizens, find a ways to fight against these violations to your rights. Because when your rights are violated, and the federal government gets away with it, who's to say they won't do it again? I mean, history tells us this. It's not just here in the United States, but across the world. When the governments find a way, and they do try to find a way to violate your rights, they will actively do it. And again, as American citizens, we need to stand up against this. My name is Nomi, and on the Dark Truth, please post your comments down below. I can't talk. Please post your comments down below, or directly message me if you have any issues in regards to how I make my videos, such as how I frame or how I talk or whatever. Thank you so much. Bye.
Almost